Arguably one of Africa's best economies, Botswana has earned itself an enviable rating as a stable economy and democracy. Chief amongst its many achievements is its fast-growing construction industry. And few things embody that advancement like the commanding Gaborone city skyline. But lurking in the shadows of its majestic skyline is an even larger threat to its continued prosperity. A slowly stagnating manufacturing sector that is failing to keep step with the changing regional and global economic landscape.
Manufacturing is important in any economy. It's important in that it's one of the biggest sectors. It employs the most people. It employs the most women. It employs the most youth. And I think it's an industry that cannot be ignored when it comes to economic development. So it's pretty important, and I think every economy, including that of Botswana, has to focus as much as possible on ensuring its growth.
Manufacturing contributes on average, if you look at the past 10 years, it has contributed anywhere between 4 and 6% to growth. It has grown in your double digits just before 2009, but in the past 10 years, just averaging around 4%. So if you look at those two figures, its contribution to growth or to the whole economy size is only around 6%, as well as its growth over time, it's only around that 4%.
A lot of initiatives have been happening over the years, but there is no doubt that there is quite a lot to be done in the sector going forward.
If manufacturing is to economic stability what infrastructure is to economic growth, then no sector exemplifies the creeping danger of a weakening manufacturing sector as the local cement production industry.
The PPC brand has been an integral part of Botswana's growth for over 40 years. Most of the landmark projects that you see here were actually built with PPC cement, not only in Gaborone but in Botswana in general. At PPC, we're not just about cement. We also provide a total solution in that we have quarries that provide aggregates and sand. At PPC, us being a truly Botswana company, we employ in excess of 150 Batswana, and this speaks exactly to what the government has been saying about creating employment. Not only about creating employment, but also helping diversify the economy in terms of over-reliance on diamonds only. Having been a part of Botswana's growth for over 40 years, we pride ourselves as having contributed towards the construction of major landmark projects that you see. Notably, Morupule B Power Station, Lotsane Dam, Dikgatlon Dam, I Towers, and very recently the construction of Boatle Game City Road project.
As far as the local manufacturers go, I think Botswana government has been crystal clear always that manufacturing is a very important activity for the country. And now if you look at our current year's budget and when our finance minister was presenting, the core theme is import substitution and export. So that way the intention is very good from the government point of view. Having said that, the implementation and the outcome has not been that strong.
So there has to be some balance between an open border system which is encouraged through free trade, and also a deliberate and unapologetic stance by Botswana to say these particular industries I'm going to protect. So that's a dialogue between the government and the private sector.
The market capitalization, that is the size of the stock market relative to the gross domestic product, when you look at domestic companies only, is about 40% of GDP. What this means is that the companies that are listed on the exchange, that provide services on a daily basis to this economy, makes up 40% of this economy. And this translates to ownership of these companies. And therefore, we can only bring the aspect again of citizen economic empowerment, that people of this country, about 5% of the population actually participate in the stock market, which is a good benchmark when you look at developing countries. And therefore, that is what we talk about wealth. Wealth is generated in the stock market. This wealth goes to the investors. The investors are ordinary citizens of this country.
If one is to address the elephant in the room, then the question must be asked, is the cement industry seeking preferential treatment, or might this be a clarion call to the powers that be to level the playing field in order to preserve value and investment?
Our position as a business has always been that our over-reliance on imports does not only weaken the country's ability to develop technical skills, it also robs the country of the much needed revenue. Again, as a business, our position has been very clear to say we welcome any kind of competition, but our issue has always been that the playing field has got to be level. I mean, how do you compete with somebody that does not have overheads locally? How do you compete with somebody that sends a truck across the border and delivers product here? What is their contribution towards CSI? What is their contribution towards employment creation, like we mentioned earlier on? What is their contribution towards taxes in country?
Yeah, you know, as a trader, or even as a distributor, you don't add as much to the economy as a manufacturer. Because a trader can bring something in from outside the country which was made by somebody else outside the country who then earned their money outside the country. You bring in a finished good into the country and then you supply it to somebody who requires it. You've not added any value to the product, so you're only benefiting one or two people. Whereas if you had created this product from scratch, you would have created an entire production line and given an opportunity to an entire value chain. And that's what really adds meaningful, contribution to an economy or the country's GDP. So manufacturing is always has to be a preference where it's possible.
All countries import something, and you only go into production when it makes sense, either in terms of lower production costs or the availability of material in that country or any other competitive and comparative advantages. But we will still have imports. But of course, there's a huge opportunity in terms of substituting the 30+ billion import bill for Botswana by creating scalable industries that can actually produce for our own market.
Over the last 5 years, we have contributed in excess of 120 million in taxes towards the government of Botswana. Obviously, as a truly Botswana company, we have, as a business, taken a deliberate stance to empower local enterprise or our SMMEs. Let me give you a typical example. We have taken a deliberate decision to make sure that in terms of our logistics or moving of our product internally, we only use transporters that are registered locally. As such, we have empowered an association of truckers called Botswana Truckers Association to make sure that they are the only ones that are moving our product across the country. In our mandate to help our people experience a better quality of life, we have been actively involved in what we call local enterprise development. What do we really mean by that? Over the last 6-8 months, we have put up sheds or containers for some of our LED customers or our so-called smaller customers, so to speak, by making sure that we capacitate them, we assist them to set up operations, to set up their businesses in such a way that they will also be able to assist in the communities in which they operate in. Some of these shares that we have put up are in areas like Letlhakane, Kumakwani, and Kopong. Of recent, there's a business in Kopong called Rafa Shama. We supported a woman there to set up their business. We put up a shed, and in the process, she has managed to grow her business from just buying over 400 bags to over 3 loads, which is close to 2,100 bags. This also speaks to exactly what we as PPC stand for, in terms of making our people experience a better quality of life.
I would say thank you PPC for what they have done, because since PPC came here, it made a dramatic change to our business. The business was growing, but it was not growing that much. So people, they started coming like in a large number, and the cement was moving very fast. And the moment they come into the shop to pay for the cement, then they will see other products, and it really helped the business to grow very fast. So it has been just few months. I don't think we have a year, but it's a testimony now.
We should be able to protect somebody who will then be able to help the country in terms of what they are producing for it to progress as an economy. So if the quality is the right quality and you can produce enough in terms of what the country demands, I think it's the responsibility of the country to protect such kind of investors.
Against the backdrop of the new normal brought on by COVID-19, one wonders if this is not the time to introspect, to realize that our future lies in how well we manage what we have now, that the bird in a hand is better than two in a bush. Could it be that this hard reset imposed on us all by the virus is, among other things, a time to think, or rather rethink our trade laws and the imbalances therein? Is this the wake-up call we all needed?
Everybody is closing down their borders. What if, for example, South Africa decides today that they are no longer going to continue providing us with some of the things that we need? What is going to happen to this country? So unless we change the way we think, the way we do things, the way we have an outlook of life as Batswana, we are not going to survive this COVID.
We've seen and learned through COVID that we need to start being more self-reliant in essential goods, for example, and we need to be able to produce our own goods so that we're not too dependent on other countries, and not just South Africa. We're dependent on quite a number of countries for a lot of imports. So I think there's lessons to be learned, and we need deliberate policies now that are going to support local enterprise so that we grow to a point where we are as self-sufficient as possible.
They say the best time to plant a tree was yesterday, but the next best time is today. The best time to have strengthened our manufacturing industry as a whole, cement production included, was ideally a decade ago. But the next best time is today.
Our contribution towards community development is evident throughout the country. To give you an example, we have managed to set up a creche in Mokolodi. This is where we've got a quarry operation. We have been very instrumental in supporting or adopting a school in Mohonono, just outside of Molepolole. And very recently also we have been in partnership with a woman empowerment in Molepolole, managed to set up a sewing project. These ladies, what they do is they make uniforms for schools, they make tracksuits for schools. And during our last visit to the project, they mentioned that they also now have started to make uniforms for the hospital in Molepolole.
Pela ga re kopana le PPC, hey ne re le mo dikgetlong gone mme ne re ntse re tataisa mme ne le boketenyana ka ntlha gore ne re sena lefelo ne re renta ne le gore re sentse go pereka ka tatakana ya no re lebile gore re duele rente re reka stoko re mamaise re go re ante mme ne santse gape le yone business ela ka bo yone le mo le hatsing yela ne santse le ko tlasenyana mme ha gore sena go kopana le PPC a bo go supa gore nya mme re ntse ra pele ka gore ya nong e bile ha re tlhole re duela rent.
Our issue is to say, let there be a level playing field. What do we mean by that? Let all these other competitors or players come and set up operations in Botswana so that they can create employment, they can contribute towards CSI. That way, then we are competing on an equal footing.
There's quite a lot of initiatives which government has to look at from a complete supply chain point of view. You know, if you take right from the start of the raw material till the consumer at every segment, what is the value add or the block which is seen in the system? And I think this is where organizations like Business Botswana and various other parastatals come into play to make sure that they get closer to the pulse of the manufacturer.
Where you're not able to get that benefit of value and you want to then make sure that your local market kind of progresses, obviously there might be a tariff, a duty, maybe that comes in, which is a form of tax, which then means you then make it more expensive to bring in the product here. So therefore, from a business sense, it doesn't make a business sense to just import that commodity here. You rather set up here and start producing here. So that's the leeway that you can come in from. There's also the one now where you look at even the quotas. I think government did indicate, especially with that particular example of cement, any importer of cement will have to show that they will have produced, they will have procured at least 70% of their stock demand locally. So there you are foreseeing some element of a quota that protects your local market. You're saying, show that you've bought at least 70% of what you need here, and then we can then do a dispensation or allow you to import the remaining 30%.
Buying local makes us to make those companies, the manufacturers, to grow. As we make the manufacturers to grow, they employ more of Batswana. And as they employ more of Batswana, they make you to grow also. And then you employ more of Batswana people. So this thing is really important for us to buy local and to manufacturers to grow also, that they can be able to supply us with everything that we need.
So as PPC, like we always say, we are not in here just to make a quick buck. We are here to stay.